Everyone, this is Lulu from As You Wish Pottery, and in this video we're painting the Home for the Holidays platter. Grab all your supplies from the lesson plan as we're gonna get started right away. Alright, so we're gonna begin by placing the image on this lesson plan under some tissue paper, and with a pencil we're gonna trace over the design. After we've traced our image, we're gonna place the design on the tissue paper on top of the platter. We're gonna center it as best as we can, and we're gonna follow the lines with a marker, securing it on the piece and ensuring that the marker transfers the image through. So just make sure to hold the sheet with one hand and press your marker well enough on the tissue paper to make sure that the image transfers over and you can see everything before we get started painting. So we're going to make sure that we trace over the house, the windows, doors, and things like that. Do not worry about the writing just yet. We'll save that for when we are done painting everything. That way we can see the writing on top of the paint. So for now, we're just doing the house and that's it. And then we're going to begin by painting. We're going to use our medium brush to mix a small amount of red blaze and polar bear to create a light pink. And with this color and brush, we're gonna paint the background of the house. So just be aware that you'll still be able to see through all the lines and everything as long as you do one coat of the paint. That's all you need. You don't need any more than that. So just make sure that everything's covered, and then after that, we'll move on. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the detail brush to paint the under the snow section on the roof and the door with 2 coats of chocolate mousse. Next, we're going to paint the sky, and we're going to do the sky and the ground, but we want to make sure that we kind of sketch out a line so that way we know where our sky will end. So you can use a pencil to kind of trace a line over the inner rim. That way you have an idea where to stop, and so you don't have to worry about painting any further. Make sure that you sketch out your ground as well. That way you know where you're going to paint the ground a different color. And we're going to mix a little bit of double mint and polar bear to create a soft light mint color, and that's the color we're going to use for the sky itself. So you'll see me mixing it here, and then once I'm comfortable and I like that color, I'll move on. And now you see I'm using my medium brush, but feel free to change out to that detail brush if you want to. If it's harder for you to get to some sections, or if you want to get into a little bit of narrow areas, just make sure that you do about 2 coats of this lighter mint color. And like I said, feel free to change onto your detail brush if you feel like it's going to be easier to get into the smaller spaces. Next, we're using the same brush. I'm going to add a little bit more white to my light mint, and I'm going to use that lighter color to paint the ground with about 1 to 2 coats of that really light mint color. And this is just to give the ground a little bit of a snowy look. Next, we're going to use the detail brush, and we're going to use it to paint the wreath and the doormat with 2 coats of lime Ricky. Since we're going to be painting lights on top of the house, we want to make sure that we can see that little curly line that goes over from left to right. So use a pencil to kind of sketch it out. I can still see it, so I just use the pencil to guide me. And then I'm also using the pencil to let me know where my lights will be. So I'm just using the sample as guide. And then once I know where my lights will be, I'm using a Q-tip to paint some of the little dots with lime Ricky to simulate my lights. Next, using the other side of the Q-tip, I'm going to do the yellow lights. That way those are done as well. And I'm using water yolk here and a Q-tip again. Then once I'm done with the lights, I'm going to use the detail brush and I'm going to paint inside the windows with 2 coats of that water yolk. Next, I'm going to rinse off my detail brush really well because now I'm going to use Polar Bear to paint the snow on top of the roof and the windowsills as well as the 2 pillars on the left and the right side of the house. And I'm going to do that with 2 coats of Polar Bear. Using the detail brush, we're also going to paint the door frame with 2 coats of Polar Bear. Using the long detail brush, I'm going to paint the wreath's bow with 2 coats of red glaze, and I'm also going to paint the stripes on the candy cane pillars to the left and right of the house, and with a Q-tip I'm going to add some more dots to my lights. Here I'm using a pencil to kind of guide me on where I need to paint my stripes. Just feel free to use a pencil to help you as well. Just remember to sketch lightly. We don't want to scrape any paint off. All we want to do is just kind of have a guidance of where we're going to paint, and it doesn't need to be perfect or anything like that because the pencil disappears after the piece has been fired. So for right now, all we need is just a guiding line to know where we're going to paint. And just know that I like things to kind of look similar. So you'll see that I paint the right side first, and then I realize that there's too many lines on my left side pillar. So I'm going to adjust that as I go. Next, I'm going to use the medium brush to paint the rim with 2 coats of red glaze. I'm going to make sure that I use that line that I sketched earlier to kind of guide me and know how far in I should paint. Just know that you don't want to get past the line because that's the sky and that takes from our image. So all we want to do is reach up to that line. And remember that that doesn't have to be perfect either, because we will be painting dots to cover up any imperfections, and we'll also be kind of separating the sky from the rim. So for right now, all we have to do is paint our rim with 2 coats of red glaze. Something I should have done earlier while I was using Polar Bear was paint my little snowflakes on the sky, but I'm gonna do that now. So I'm just gonna use the detail brush, Polar Bear, and about 2 coats to paint some snowflakes and some cute little snowflake dots or snow dots around the sky. Alright, so next we're gonna paint some more lights on the house, and once we're done, we're gonna use the Q-tip and double mint to paint the dots on the inner rim. Also, don't forget to paint the dot that goes into the doorknob. I'm also kind of controlling when it comes to dots. Hear me out. I like to use the back of a pencil that's not been used, so like a really nice flat eraser part of a pencil, right? And I like to use that for dots when it comes to doing dots on the rim, just because I'm trying to have the dots be the same size, and sometimes the Q-tips kind of get absorbed a little bit more water than I'd like them to, and they get a little bit chunky in some places. So you'll see here that I kind of changed my Q-tip for the back of a pencil, and I suggest that if you have a pencil that's nice, you're more than welcome to do that. If not, just know that you might have to change out Q-tips here and there, but that's totally okay. This is just for me to show you the difference between both. It's not a really big difference, but to me it's just easier to do it this way. Something totally optional, but with the back of the medium brush, I'm gonna add some dots, some little clusters of dots on the wreath, just to create kind of a highlight or shadow effect, kind of textured in a way on my wreath, to just give it a little bit of a cool effect. So all I'm doing here is just pooling some dots together, kind of going up and down wherever I want to add that little bit of a textured effect. So at this time, I'd suggest that you trace your home letters, or you can sketch them out yourself with a pencil, as you saw me do. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the detail brush, and I'm going to use black lab, and I'm going to outline everything. I'm going to start off with the roof, then I'm going to carry on all the parts that are dry, and then once everything's dry, I will go in and write on the house mat or on the floor doormat. I'm going to write my letters. So I like to outline everything first with a detail brush. Remember that one of the greatest things about using the detail brush is that you don't have to go over your lines multiple times. One time is plenty. If you see that I go over it, it's because either I had a little bit of an accident or I'm trying to make a line thicker. And my suggestion is to always start off with not too much paint on your brush, so that way you can control how thick your lines will be. Just know that the more paint you have on your brush, the thicker your lines will be, and the less paint you have on the tip of your brush, the thinner your lines will be. And remember that you can always make your lines thicker as you paint, but I like to start off thinner, and then once I feel that a little bit more weight is needed, I will add a little bit of more thickness to them. But it's easier to start and work with things as they're thinner, and then thicken them up to fix any mistakes. So just try to start off by not loading your brush too heavily, and try to just have the softest or the lightest weight on your hands as possible, so that way you can control how thick your lines are going to be. Another tip is to rotate the piece around. Don't work at it just in one direction. Try to move it around and make it comfortable for yourself. So you'll see my plate kind of rotates. I try to move it as much as possible to make it easier for myself. So I don't ever want to move or change the way I'm sitting or the way I'm painting. I want my piece to move with me. So what you'll see is that I like to go at different angles whenever I'm trying to work on a project that is kind of like a platter or something big like that. I also like to make sure that I'm making it as easy as possible for my hands so it doesn't have to travel as far. And so I'll get really close up to the platter, or I will rotate it and go at it upside down. That's also an option. Just try to find whatever's the most comfortable for you so that way your piece isn't just sitting there and you're struggling to get the shapes and the outlines done. Make it a little bit easier on yourself. Make the platter work for you, don't work for it. All right, so here's my big head, totally in the way, but that's how I roll. I like to get really close to my pottery. Most of all, when I'm doing any lettering, you'll see me get really, really close up. It just makes it easier for me to make sure that I am always at control. I also like to grab my brush very close to the tip of it, just so that way I can ensure that the bristles are in the direction that I'm trying to work them. And when it comes to the lettering, I'm doing it the same way I did all the outlining, starting with thin lines and getting my basic shapes going first, and then I just kind of paint them on. So think about lettering as the same way as everything else you've painted today. You want it to be kind of painted on, right? So you're gonna have to take your time with it and work one letter at a time. Don't try to rush it. This is supposed to be something fun and relaxing, and it's just following the line. So don't overdo it, don't start heavy, and don't get frustrated. Just take a deep breath and work little by little, and then once it's all done, you'll be super happy and excited, I promise. Right, so here's our piece, all pretty much done. I'll do a little close-up so you can kind of see it and have a better idea of how I did everything on there. Apart from that, thank you so much for painting with me today. Have a great day and bye-bye.